Hello friends, I'm Kaustubh and today we are here to discuss Chapter 3 of Economic Survey 2019-20. Before moving on to the Economic Survey, today I would like to candidly accept that I feel very lucky that I'm able to communicate with you. I already feel like Chuck Nolan and you are my Wilson. If you do not know who these people are, watch Castaway by Tom Hanks. Now, coming back to the Economic Survey, uh, the Chapter 3 is titled Pro Business versus Pro Crony. Now, before we understand these terms, let me give you an analogy. It is like a political system. In democracy, say India, a very good ruler, PM, comes to power. This PM rules the country efficiently. But the problem is the PM's children who come to power later, not because they had merit, but because they were the children of that particular PM, they gain power, but they understand that they lack the merit to govern a country like India, a vast country like India. So what happens? They rely on a group of sycophants, right? Yes men, who would only preserve power. Their major aim is only to keep power in their hands and get as much benefit as possible from this polity, right? From this country. And then, in due course of time, who loses the most? These people are going to come down some or the other time. Second, the entire party to which these people belong is brought down. And third, it is the common people, common man who also suffers. Why? Because very inefficient decisions may be made by these people who may not, those decisions may not be in the favor of people. And ultimately, country as a whole is losing. Now, if you consider this is not the disclaimer is this is not the story of any political party that I want to point out. The only thing is I'm giving you an analogy to apply to the Indian economic system. Now, when you speak about Indian economic system, here also big companies come. Many companies are born, they rule, and then they are supposed to be destroyed. But if this churning, this dynamism is not present in the Indian economy, what would happen? There will be stagnation. Stagnation, we know, is death. Now, consider Indian economic system. This is too large to actually speak about. So what we do is this chapter 3 of economic survey speaks about Sensex, because Sensex we can understand is like a microcosm of entire economic system. Sensex has a group of companies, 30, 50, whatever they are, right? So this BSE or Nifty, if you consider BSE has 30 companies, Nifty has 50 companies. Now, if you consider them as representative of Indian economy, you can study the composition of Sensex. You can study how many new entries are coming every year. You can study how many of the existing entries are being removed, exit the Sensex every year, right? You can see the composition by sector. All these factors, when you study regarding census, you get a understanding about the dynamism or the churn that is occurring in the Indian economy. Ultimately, what I'm trying to point out is creative destruction. So this creative destruction that we have consistently emphasized in the earlier sessions also is at the is at the base of entire economy. It has to be at the base. This dynamism will lead to wealth creation. It will lead to bringing in new technologies, new ideas, new innovations, and these innovations would lead to better products, better services, and cost effective goods and services for majority of the people. So it is like welfare, wealth creation and welfare simultaneously. So this creative destruction is the ultimate message that you need to take from chapter 3, pro business versus pro crony. Now, having discussed the entire context, let us start discussion on the basics that are given here. First page, if you see, here Sensex is mentioned, and then what is mentioned here is time taken to achieve each incremental milestone has substantially reduced over the years. So if you study the Sensex of India, it has been seen that earlier the time taken to double the wealth value in Sensex took a lot of time. But after 1991 liberalization, this time is reducing. So it clearly indicates that the Sensex is able to generate better wealth, more wealth in less and less time. So this is dynamism. Second, if you go to the second page, page number 44 of this chapter, Sensex and its journey has been divided into 4 phases. It's technical. We don't have to get into that, right? But point 3.3, see here, 3.3. This it points out that the relationship between pro-business policy and creative destruction is mirrored in the composition of Sensex over the years. So what the authors are trying to point out, it is very clear that there is a positive relationship between pro-business policies, the pro-business policies like which support competition in the market, fair policies. So pro-business policy and creative destruction, right? So there is a positive correlation. Next, go to page number 45. Here you can clearly see figure 2. What this figure 2 shows, it also shows the companies which exited Sensex year by year. So you can see that after 1996, significant companies which were part of Sensex went out. So that shows that new companies replaced them. So that churning in Sensex increased after the liberalization of 1991, which is a very positive sign. Earlier, for example, any company which came to Sensex in the earlier, say, decades of 1950s, 60s, 70s, these companies could stay on the Sensex for nearly 60 years. Just imagine. Today, that duration is brought to for 12 years only. So a company that enters Indian Sensex now can expect to be there only for 12 years, not 60 years perpetually, right? 60 years is a generation. So 12 years only. So it shows more competition, more dynamism, and more creative destruction in the Sensex and Indian economy. Now, we move to page number 46. Here, it is the argument that is being made here. Table 1 is also given. It shows that the composition of Sensex also underwent a change. So certain companies like Balarpur Industries or Bharat Forge were replaced by consumer durables like Arvind Mills or Bajaj Auto. So there is a change in, the churn also increased, dynamism also increased, and the composition of Sensex also underwent a significant change. And what it signified, new ideas, new technologies, and new processes that were being adopted in the economy. Even new sectors entered. See, till 90s, banks and financials were not part of it. But after 1995-96, you see that many financial companies, banking institutions started getting being part of Sensex. So, for example, today, if you see, one of the most valued companies are HDFC AMC, asset management company, HDFC Bank, Kotak Mahindra, right? All these banks, right? ICICI, Axis, all are displayed on the Sensex. Even SBI is doing well. So financials and banking institutions, they were not part of Sensex earlier. So after liberalization, these came forward. And in the last session, we have discussed that any economy can expect to grow only if it has a very strong background of banking system. So here it's a positive sign. Uh, Page number 47, figure 4, very important because it shows that sectoral composition of Sensex. And before 1995, as I have mentioned, banks and financial institutions were not present at all, nearly. So now today you can see in 2019, financials and IT firms make more than 50% of the market share of Sensex. It's a very important point, right? That IT companies and financials, they are more than 50% of the market share of Sensex, on Sensex, right? Now, page number 48, diversity of the Sensex is given by various sectors. 3.10, if you look at this paragraph, it is said that India has followed an idiosyncratic growth pattern. What is meaning here? That we did not follow the Levesian transformation of economy that was expected. Now, for example, every economy is primary first, so agriculture based, then it goes to manufacturing, then it goes to services, and then further R&D and innovations. But then what we have done is we have shifted directly from agriculture to services. Today's service sector forms more than 60% of your GDP. All good. But the problem is manufacturing is neglected. And once manufacturing is neglected, we saw in the previous session also that manufacturing can give you jobs which are well paying. It will allow the wealth to percolate to the bottom, and sustainable growth in incomes is possible only if manufacturing sector goes up along with primary and tertiary sectors. So here, more than 60% of India's GDP is attributable to services, and that is this sectoral composition is also reflected on Sensex. You saw IT and financials; they're service sector, more than 50% of market share on the Sensex, right? 3.11. Today's Sensex is not only composed of large number of sectors, but is also far more democratic in terms of size. So if you look at pre-liberalization and post-liberalization, one thing that is clearly seen is earlier the big firm was really big. So we had Goliath and then David. But now, after 1991, the largest and the smallest on Sensex, the gap is not too huge, right? So it is more democratic. So the number composition has diversified, numbers has increased, right? And the distinction between wealth is also low. So these are all positive signs because they show competition, they show innovation, creative destruction, emergence of new firms in Indian economy. Then page number 49, here 3.12, it speaks about financials, IT firms, right? Here one thing is they've highlighted a few points from 3.13. You will see rise in number of companies rather than a size of incumbents. That is a positive sign, as I said. So earlier there was Goliath and David, but now what we have is more numbers rather than just increasing the size of existing. So it shows more competition. Second point, very interesting technical concept they have given. It's Herfindahl index. So it is used to analyze the degree of competition within two sectors. So here, within the sector, within a particular sector. So if you say IT companies only, so in IT companies also, how much competition is available in the economy or present in the economy, that can be gauged by using this Herfindahl index. So here, on the next page, you can see the chart. Financials are doing good. The index is going down. So it is good that there is more competition. But IT sector, it's a cause of concern. The index is increasing. This means the competition is reducing. This means monopoly trends are coming up in IT sector, and that needs to be taken care of. So here it is overall decline they have showed, right? Then three key insights. So 3.15, it's very important. What are the three key insights? So remain dominant for only 1/5 of the time. So what we have already discussed this, that a company that enters Sensex today, only 12 years. So the span has come down drastically. Second, being displaced by new sectors, that is also important, right? So sectoral composition has also changed, and the economy as it is in churn, that is, this dynamism is getting reflected on the Sensex also. And third point, difference between sizes of largest and smallest firm is rapidly shrinking. I've already spoken about this. This is all competition, and all said, all good, right? I'll give you an example just. In 1990s, right, the private transport consisted of vehicles like this Ambassador, Hindustan Motors, then the Jeep, Commander Jeep, then Tempo Tracks, Tempo Travelers, and these were considered luxury. Fast forward 15-20 years, 2018-19. Look at the kind of private vehicles you have on Indian roads today. They're not Ambassador. Ambassador was nothing as compared to what you have on Indian roads today. Consumers have a huge choice, cost competitive, better features, right? And you have a diverse plethora of choice from SUVs, sedans, and all, right? All luxury. So this is possible when you allow competition in the market. Otherwise, Hindustan Motors was domestic company that was protected by Indian laws. Foreign competition was not allowed, and then who was suffering? Consumer did not have better choice. So taking this example of automobile sector, if you see the last three or four lines of 3.15, on the right side it is given, consumers benefit from an increased variety of goods and services, lower prices, and incessant improvement in the quality of existing products. This is best reflected in the automobile sector of India if you compare 1990s, that decade, and then the decade of 2010 to 2020. Clear? After this, we move to page number 51. Here, again, uh, the concept of creative destruction is mentioned. The technical definition is given. It is very important. Austrian economist and creator of the term, Joseph Schumpeter. So it's called a Schumpeterian concept, right? What is the definition? Process of industrial mutation that incessantly revolutionizes the economic structure from within, right? From within, incessantly destroying the old one, incessantly creating a new one. So this has to be the crux of functioning of your economic market or economic system, right? So 3.17, creative destruction. So what does it do? New innovations into the market, new firms into the market, and then dynamism of the marketplace. So this is what creative destruction is all about. And how can you bring creative destruction, or how can you entrench this system of creative destruction in your economy? By having pro-business policies and not pro crony policies, right? So here figure 11 on page number 51 gives us a difference between pro-business and pro crony. And as you can well guess, you see the difference. Pro businesses, firms compete on a level playing field, so competition. Resource allocation in the economy is efficient. This means what? Resources are allocated. See, ultimately, going back to the introduction part, the first chapter, as I told you, that ultimate aim of economy is to use resources more efficiently to generate the maximum wealth that can be generated, and then that wealth should be nicely redistributed, right, in a just manner at the bottom of the pyramid and throughout the pyramid also. So this resource allocation is very important point. If you don't allocate resources properly, what will happen? There will be wastage of resources. They are inefficiently used. Resources go from less productive to more productive to less productive sectors. So if it is not done properly, So resource allocation in the economy is efficient if their policy is pro-business, and then citizens' welfare is maximized ultimately. So choice and better quality. Pro Crony is exactly opposite. Some incumbent firms may receive preferential treatment. Resource allocation in economy may not be efficient. And lastly, citizens' welfare may not be maximized. Now, if you want to see the difference between pro-business and pro-crony, I would like to give you an example. Just think about Indian aviation sector and Indian railway sector. If you look at Indian aviation sector, we have open market up to much extent. Today, you have a vast choice in the career that you want. Now, just do not look at present condition. Because of lockdown, everything is shut down, right? No bird is flying today. But then, uh, a few months ago, if you see, you have a vast choice, right? There is scope for improvement always because Air India is still there. But then I believe that relatively aviation sector is better open than the railway sector. So if you look at the Indian aviation sector, there are multiple players. There are private players, there are foreign players. And because of this, the quality of aviation, the quality of services, efficiency, cost effectiveness, all of you have experienced the benefits of it. The point is, today from Pune to Delhi or Delhi to Bangalore, if you see these flights, the rates are nearly competing or competitive or as efficient as railways. So, what is wrong with railways then? If you look at railways, uh, reference to the Vivek Debroy committee report, right? We need to privatize or bring private competition into railway sector, right? I'm not uh, saying that railways should be privatized, but operations, certain sectors in railways should be privatized. Now, to bring this point, right, pro business and pro crony into just context, if you look at Indian railways, what is the prime function of Indian railways? They are supposed to do two main things: one, freight, and second, passenger. In the context of freight, we know, and in the earlier lecture we have seen, that if you increase the distance, water transport is the cheapest, second should be railways, and then should be road, right? Aviation, we keep it apart. However, if you see in India, nearly 65% of the uh, freight transport and more than around 80% of traffic, passenger traffic, is borne on the roadway sector, not railways. Why railways have lagged behind roads? The reason is freight transport is inefficient. Passenger traffic, because of the lack of competition, there are no good facilities. So railways is not performing its prime duty of timely movement of freight at competitive rates. Second, not moving passengers fast enough and in a comfortable way, convenient fashion to people. So what it has resulted into, the people who can travel by their own private vehicles are traveling by their private vehicles by road. The freight transport is more on road than railways. And thirdly, those who have a bit more money are moving to aviation wherever it is the option is available. Railways is a major loser, right? And what is happening here? Look at railways. Railways, freight and passenger are the most important functions. But what are they doing? Railways today are running schools, they're running catering business. Railways are the highest employer, so manpower is huge as compared to the profit they're generating. Railways are also running hospitals. Railways have their own police force, they have their audit service. You are supposed to run trains on time, in a convenient fashion, in a cost effective manner. You are not doing that. Railways main function is to move goods and move people in time and in a convenient fashion. They don't do that, and then you are running schools, hospitals, audits, police. Why? Railways should do what it is supposed to do. So if you increase competition in the quality of services or various products which are given by railways, for example catering, right? So why should we be as passengers be forced to eat from the railway pantry, which is pathetic in quality, right? So if you give options, suddenly competition will rise, consumer will gain, prices will come down, right? Even the facilities available to people on board the train will increase, right? The trains would be forced to perform in terms of their punctuality and the services they provide to the and the experience they provide to the travelers or passengers. So this is a difference between having pro business policy and pro crony policy. So pro crony is like you just favor one, right? The way we are favoring our railways only. So this is not an example of pro crony directly. I'm going to come to that technicality later, but I'm just giving you an example where you open competition and close sector. What happens here, right? So with this idea in mind, we move to the next point, page number 52. So here if you see, the only thing that is necessary for competition is a pro-business policy. Now, pro-crony and wealth destruction. So what this point is going to highlight after page number 52 is how pro-crony policies result into destruction of wealth. Pro-crony policies, in contrast to pro-business ones, erode wealth in the economy, and cronyism fosters inefficiencies by inhibiting the process of creative destruction. So ultimately, pro-crony policy does not allow competition. If there is no competition, there is no innovation, right? If there is no innovation, there is no creative destruction. Clear? So here we are going to highlight and study certain points how crony policy hurts the economy. Generally, it is seen that if there is a pro-crony policy, this means what basically? There are certain big players in the market. These players have political connections. Because they have political connections, they get certain preferential treatment. And because they get certain preferential treatment, they do not invest on efficiency. Rather, they just seek rent or earn benefits or profits out of their position in the economy. This leads to misallocation of resources, inefficient production, and overall wealth generation goes down. Clear? So here, the mention here, page number 53, 3.22. If you see here, the CAG report, 2G allocations, and then all that is mentioned in the first paragraph, ultimately everything boils down to the same thing that I'm pointing out repeatedly. Government has to act as an efficient referee. Regulating system in the economy has to be very good. Otherwise, you cannot have proper competition. If there is no fair play and proper competition, there will be no innovation, creative destruction, and that is going to hurt your economy in long term. Clear? So, page number 53, right side, if you see, put differently, from 2007 to 14, connected firms realized 7 percentage points more gain. So here, the survey tries to tell us that if you observe Indian economy, till 2011, this 2G scam and all, the politically connected firms, they made more profits, right? And their shares were valued on Sensex without a commensurate increase in their efficiency or productivity. So this benefit was derived only because of their political connections. And after 2011, when things started changing, government changed, what happened? These firms started making losses then because they were inefficient anyway, right? And then competition increased and they were not able to face quality competition, right? Now here, how political connectedness helps the crony firms, box 1 on page number 53. So here, several studies from around the globe find that political connections lead to rent extraction. What is rent extraction? It is given at the end of this box on the other page. These are myriad of benefits enjoyed by politically connected firms. These benefits represent direct and indirect forms of rent seeking or rent unduly enjoyed by the connected firms. So what is this rent seeking, right? This is misallocation of resources. Just because of political connections, the existing players, now for example, Vijay Mallya, Kingfisher Airlines, they got loans from banks because of their political connections. When and willfully he defaulted and ran out of the country, fugitive, economic fugitive. So what happened here? This is rent seeking. He earned money, the shareholders earned money. Who lost? The banks. And from where do banks get money? It is our money, the deposit or the bailout by government. So taxpayers' money or people's money was misallocated and carried over by the functionaries of Kingfisher, especially the owners of Kingfisher. Now this is rent seeking, understand? And basic point is political connections. So here, box 1, there is a theory that markets anticipate additional sources of profit for now politically connected firm. So ultimately, how politically connected firms gains profit? One, if the firm is politically connected, its shares increase on Sensex without increasing productivity, efficiency, or profitability. This is bad. One. Second, distressed politically connected firms are significantly more likely to be bailed out, right? Because of their political connections, they are bailed out. So taxpayers' money is used to bail them out. And why they needed a bailout? Because they were inefficient. Clear? Third, access to bank finance is an important channel. So again, Vijay Mallya, why did he get loan? You see in Indian economy, if a person, an ordinary farmer needs a loan, even of 50,000, a few thousands, what would happen? The bank makes him do a lot of paperwork, visit the bank 3 or 4 times or 10 times, and then even then there is no guarantee that the loan would be given or sanctioned. Look at Vijay Mallya, 9,000 crore rupees from 3 different banks on the same mortgage. Now, where were the rules? Why this could happen? Political connections. And that is the third point here, that access to bank finance is an important channel through which political connections operate. So World Bank study of cronyism in Ukraine, here certain evidences from Ukraine are also given in this study. Can go through this World Bank study. Even then China is also mentioned. Other countries are mentioned. You can just go through, and then last paragraph it mentions about rent seeking. After this, we move to page number 55. Again, here, Pro Crony, what it does to Indian economy. It has indirect, see, these are direct costs that we saw, right? Bank and Sensex and all this. But there are certain indirect costs also. For example, it undermines economy's capacity to create wealth, so weakens the economic system, and transfer of wealth exacerbates income inequality in the economy. So certain people just they go on becoming rich, and other people become poor, right, who are dependent. So here, example is given. For example, if you look at Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, so in a study, this box 2, they have highlighted that even in the allocation of contracts, most of the contractors or many of them have political connections, because they are supposed to pay rent to the politicians also. So here also the problem is, you see in India there is a peculiar feature. Every year after monsoon or during summer, you see people making roads, the state highways, especially small roads and state highways. Every year the highways are renewed. Why? If you go to the Western countries, this is not the case, that every year you make a new road at the same place. Why? Because the road was substandard, right? Substandard. There is a rainfall, the entire road goes away, right? But this is why does the contractor make such suboptimal and pathetic road? The reason is, he is supposed to give rents to the politicians for contracts that he gets. So he gets contracts because of political connections, and then the money every year on road construction goes from public coffers. So the taxes that are paid by citizens. So who is ultimately losing? We get bad roads, there are more number of accidents, and then our money goes in the pockets of contractors as well as politicians. This is rent seeking, misallocation of resources, right? This money could have been better used each year if the road was once and for all nicely done, right? At least for a couple of years, the money that is spent every year on road could have been allocated to some productive sector. But then that is not done. Why? Because of this misallocation of resources. So discretionary, page number 55, right side, you see discretionary allocation of natural resources vis-a-vis allocation of via auctions. So this is another way. So for example, if you say, take the example of coal. India has fifth largest coal reserves. But allocation of coal sector, if you see, earlier it was only CIL. There was no competition. So there was a lot of inefficiency, there was unproductivity. Now, once you open the field for competition, then you will see that the coal production also increases, and that will also help the power sector, because the raw material will be available in better quantity and better quality. So here, 3.27, coal nationalization, captive mining, and all that is given. This is technical, just go through that, but the central message I already gave you, right? Again, page number 57, there is a heading, use of related party transactions, RPTs. So ultimately it is seen that this is all technical, but what is the crux? That when elections occur, after that it is seen that companies which are politically connected try to siphon off the money through various technical loopholes in the system, and these are mentioned here, like related party transactions. Then how it is done under the head of capital purchases, it is on the right side, it is mentioned capital purchases, revenue expenses, revenue income, and so on. On the other page also, page number 58, it mentions that even foreign firms can be given such related party transactions, directors compensation, salaries, even the top players, they get more money. So all these are one time payments. These are like the rent seeking part, right? Next, ultimately firm productivity, page number 59, it mentions firm productivity and performance. Now, logically speaking, if these politically connected firms are getting more amount of money, preferential treatment in the economy, they get easy loans from banks, so it should increase their productivity, right? But the problem here is, the catch is, this money is not invested into productivity or efficiency, rather it is siphoned off, right? So this is like Dutch disease. What is Dutch disease? It has been mentioned here on page 59. So technically, what is Dutch disease? the negative consequences that can arise from a spike in the value of nation's currency. Now, for example, if India finds a huge uh, gas reserve, shale reserve in India, and we decide to open it for foreign companies also, what happens? Huge investment will come in the form of dollars. So rupee will rise. This appreciation in your currency, abnormal spike, will result into what? It will result into less exports, right? And then because of this abnormal spike in your currency, it will lead to certain negative externalities on the economy. So that is what is called as Dutch disease. So here it reduces the price competitiveness and increase in imports. So this is because of spike in local currency. So this Dutch disease is important for your exam prelims. Then figure 15 is important, market share of allotee firms, committee based allocation. So discretionary allocation, which was based on political connections, you will see that the market share of such companies is going down consistently, and especially in the recent past. Now 3.34, overall the evidence suggests that discretionary allocation of natural resources by a committee provides avenues for rent seeking. So that is what we are discussing about. Then we come to page number 60, reckless returns, willful default. This is again very very important point. The example of Kingfisher I have already given. uh, in India, corruption was believed to be an activity which was high profit and low risk, right? Ideally, if you see gambling, right, wherever, it's a simple rule in gambling also, in economic also, and overall in life also: high risk, high profit. So if you want to gain huge profit, you have to take a huge risk. But then, unlike the general rule, nature's rule, corruption and this willful default, the way people manipulate the banking system, this is seen as a high profit, low risk activity, right? Look at Vijay Mallya, 9,000 crores, and he's enjoying in UK, right? So this is the problem in Indian economy, that if government is not a good referee, if regulatory system does not work well, what happens, right? Here, ultimately citizens lose. So it is high profit, low risk activity. Here, what they've said, it's mentioned like it's a classic case of one way gamble in which heads the promoter wins, tails the lender loses. So anyway, the lender loses, right? So 3.36, RBI definition of willful default is given here. That can be asked in a prelims exam also, question paper. Next, because besides making the cronies rich, it contributes nothing to the economy, right? And here, figure 16, if you see aggregate outstanding amount owed by willful defaulters in crores, it's huge. To make sense, go to page number 61. You will see here figure 18, wealth destroyed by willful defaulters in comparison to union budget allocations. So if you see the amount of wealth destroyed because of willful defaulters, it is equal to the allocation in budget for health, education, and social protection. Now you get the scale. So you could have easily doubled the health, education, and social protection budget of India if this willful default was avoided. But then, unfortunately, that was not the case. And if you observe the willful defaulters in India, maximum willful defaults are in manufacturing sector. Now, page number 62, three distinguishing characteristics of willful defaulters in India, right? Willful defaulters, the companies which go for willful default. First, willful defaulters tend to be more opaque than both non-defaulters and firms that default out of genuine distress. So these willful defaulters are opaque, non-transparent. So manipulate information, data. Second, these firms pledge on average almost 50% of their shareholding to the lenders. Now, this is very abnormal. Just understand that Kingfisher has market capitalization. So it's on Sensex, its shares are in public. Now, what it does is it takes loan from, say, a particular bank, X bank, it takes particular amount of loan. So what these willful defaulters do, they, what do they keep as mortgage? They pledge their shares to the bank. Now, this is abnormal. The bank should not accept such shares. Why, you know? But they do because of political connections. So why these shares should not be accepted? Understand that what is the use of mortgage? So if the company is going down, if there is a problem, if the company is defaulting on its loan, the lender should be able to make use of mortgage to make good the loss. But then, as mortgage, if I've taken the shares of that company itself and the company is going down, and it is not able to repay my loan, the shares are also going to tank. because it is going to default. So the moment the market senses that it is going to default, the shares are going to tank. So the mortgage that I'm holding in the form of shares are of no use. I cannot regain my loss from those shares. So, but this is what they've done in Indian economy, right? And third, willful defaulters are net givers of loans. So what they do is they do not use this money for investment. Rather, they spread this money into the economy, right? And they, to the related firms, they give loans. So the company itself is not able to repay the loan that it took from bank, but it doesn't keep that money to itself. Rather, it gives that money to related firms as loan. So it is a net giver of loans. This is also a problem. And then 3.43 clearly mentions that the cost of such willful default is borne by the common man. Uh, Public sector banks get their equity from taxes paid, they get their debt from deposits made by common man. So in every way, right, the rich tend to become more richer and the common man loses, right? 3.44, willful default if unchecked would result would also increase in the cost of borrowing for everybody else. So obviously Malia ran away with the money, banking system lost that money, so the money remaining with the banks, the interest rate will go up, and banks would be very wary of lending money to others. So the quality of credit available and the amount of credit available for others in other players and stakeholders in the economy goes down if there is willful default. So ultimately we come to the conclusion. What is the conclusion here? Pro-business policies increase competition, correct market failures, enforce business accountability. However, on the other hand, pro-crony policies, they hurt markets. Crony businesses may lobby the government, restrict. So how crony businesses operate, that is mentioned here. And 3.46 is important, that what are the policies that need to be followed by the government as pro-business policies. Ultimately, what I want to point out in conclusion, what is the main takeaway? It is that you should understand that government has no business to do business, right? Government has no business of doing business. Government should be a facilitator. It should be a regulator and facilitator for what? A good competition. Good competition. Are we believing in invisible hand again? Invisible hand with the support of hand of trust, as we mentioned earlier. Clear? So with this, I end this session. Thank you all and have a very nice time. Thank you.